So I don't intend to use that field trailer very often, but it's a thing that's available to us. So square bale semi-trailer. Oh, yeah, I can't go through that little pathway again. There's the plows there. And I am going to need to turn that help desk on. Put text on. Forwards, backwards, change cruise control. No, so we are selected on the truck, so is it going to pick up bales? No. There we go, operating position. Whoa. Let's see if we can pick them all up from here. If we can't, I might enlist the help of the bale loading wagon so that we can move all of these. Basically, I want all of these out of this, at least this field, if not field 9 as well, so I don't have to drive across it again. I think we've probably got the capacity here. Yeah, my justification for this is, well, if I could pay a worker in the telehandler to do this for me while I was wrapping the bales, then I'd have done that, but FarmSim doesn't let me do it, so we're sort of cheating. Yeah, we're nearly full. I think I've got room for one more. So we'll grab that one and help. If we go to transporting position, that's fine. It now won't pick up more bales, but and then park this probably on the left, just up here. Jump in the class. I'll grab the bales out of field 9, that way we're not traipsing through this field while we're ploughing it. Well, not that I can plough, that's the thing. I can't actually plough it, I have to do it manually, so this is going to be a fair amount of work. But it's the only time we need to do it. Well, the one kid and the wife are doing okay. They are doing summer schooling. Because she was in foster care for quite a long time, she's been left behind by her teachers at school. Because teacher incentives don't encourage teachers to make sure all their students get the best they can. They encourage the teacher to get the best results that they can. So, and we have had evidence of a teacher completely lying about our particular kid achievements, because she was, because of the distance learning thing this year, she was doing Zoom classes, and Mrs. Osa was checking her results, and sort of, multiple choice questions, and she got half of them wrong. So the teacher would mark the ones that she got wrong and say, do it again. So she'd do it again, and then if she still got any of them wrong, the teacher would just tell her what the answers were. So she's not showing any retention of the information she was learning. She was just, well, the teacher told me that was the answer, so that's what I put down. And of course the issue with that is, all that means is the teacher gets a good report at the end of the year because the teacher had a class which had excellent grades. The truth is not so evident. We did have a go at that teacher, and from that point onwards the teacher actually started marking and failing our student, but she had enough A+ grades coming out at the end that it was not a thing. She looked good for her superiors, so not impressed by that. Okay, we'll put this towards the entrance because we're not going anywhere except up the top to get the thing. Okay, now actually I'm going to get the case and the small plough, and we'll lay out the edge of the field, probably do 3 headlands with the small plough, and then we'll get the big tractor with the big plough to fill in the gaps. So because of that, our child is grade 4 reading where she should be grade 8, and we figured that we need to improve her reading grade quite significantly so that she can do high school study and understand it. So we are pushing through a lot of English this summer. Word, spelling, vocab, grammar, all the English stuff. And if she does well, then she probably won't be... Oh, don't turn that way. She probably won't be up to grade 8, but if we can pull her up a grade or 2 before main school year starts, we can at least do some grounding work in science and geography and history. I mean, oops, I can't go that way. What am I doing? What's it? One of the guys at church showed her a map of the US and said, "Oh, do you know where this is?" And she said, "England." So, she doesn't know what the world looks like. So, basic geography, basic history. She needs to learn American history because she doesn't have much of a clue on that either. And then as we build on the stuff she should already know, we'll be able to start looking at courses more appropriate to her schooling age. But there's no point starting her off on that now. I need blah blah blah, allow create fields, turn plow. I won't be turning it, we'll just lower it and go. Okay. Oh, I'm not don't do that. Raise plow. Okay, why is that not working? Is there an unfold? Oh, is there an unfold option? That's always a good question. Fold plow is 5. Allow create fields. Higher worker, lower plow. Oh, it turned off. Why is this not creating a field? This is this is weird. Left plow, detach, select, tool. Huh. I am guessing I've got another mod conflict. So let's change that back to limit fields. Lift the plow, fold the plow. Go get the big one. That should have worked. Now I could try, I don't know if I've got create fields with a cultivator. We do have a big cultivator, so I could try that if this doesn't work, but oops. Well, and I think, you know, it's understandable because of the way the schools work. She's been in foster care, she's been in multiple families. So it's all sort of, she ends up in a new class. Okay, think of it as a teacher. You've got to perform your job well as a teacher, and you're graded by the grades of your students. You've got 20 students that you've had all year that you've been teaching through the coursework so that they know, they're studying everything that you need to teach them. And each week you're building on it more and more. And then you get a student come in the middle of the year who hasn't been studying your class, and what's the remedy for that? You spend all of your time with that one student, bringing her up to the point that the rest of your students are at, or do you continue teaching the rest of your students what they need to know to graduate the end of the year and just ignore the transient student that came in because you just don't have time to devote all of your attention to them? It sucks, but I kind of understand why it happens. And it's not like the foster care industry is invested in making sure the kids achieve. They've got their they've got their requirements. The kid has to go to school. They don't have to graduate, they just have to go to school. So it's just a mess. It's what it is because of what the government and the teaching industry requires of a teacher compared with what should actually be happening. Ideally, those teachers should be spending time with foster care children and teach them what they need to know. But a lot of foster kids are resentful of where they are. They just want to be back with their mum and dad, and everybody's telling them they can't be. And going to school, they're not particularly interested in achieving. And so, even if you do get someone who is a student who wants to learn, because most of them don't, most teachers aren't going to invest the time. But to lie about it, that's, if they told the truth and said, this student's not, failing grade, that's one thing. But I don't think there's an incentive to do that because foster kids, we kind of want to get them out of foster care when they turn 18. So we don't want them held back a year because that's not what we want. We've had, the government has to look after them, and if they didn't have to look after them, that would be that would be so much better. But I don't know. It's how do you make the system better? I don't know. Okay, well this plough appears to be working. Plus, it's bigger than the other one. So I'm kind of wondering that other plough. Let's stop and talk about that other plough. That other plough, I believe, is under ploughing. Not that I know where ploughs are there. And it is this one here, which you can have with the cultivator the cultivator on the side. And I'm guessing it's that thing. That this allows create new fields. This says it allows create new fields, but we seem to have been having a problem with that. So I'm just wondering, because it has that cultivator side attachment, whether it doesn't, or there's a conflict somewhere with one of my mods. But this plough is reliable. It's the in-game Lemkin plough. You need just shy of 400 horsepower to use it, and it served me well through all of the Saturday stream. The other one, I'll keep it because we're growing root crops which need ploughed after you've harvested them, and it's easy to set this thing off on a worker up and down the field and then run round with the case on the small plough, just ploughing the edges of the fields where the big plough just doesn't work too well with the worker. To alter the viewing angle. So as I was saying, it would be nice if the teachers told the truth and just said this student's failing, because at least then the parents have an idea this student is failing, and a conscientious foster parent may invest some time and money in helping the student with additional out of summer school, that sort of thing. And obviously when you're an adoptive parent, it would have been really nice to know that our kid was failing these classes, and so that we could actually invest the time to help her, and not we were delayed 6 months in finding out, and then it's sort of, she's not passing, this is a problem, why didn't you tell us? Because all we're getting from the school, she's an A+ student, she's brilliant. And that information goes back to the foster agency, Child Protective Services, whatever they are. And so nobody is any the wiser that the student's actually not doing well. And that's failing the student. It's not failing the education system, because you're playing within the rules. But the rules aren't always the best thing. It's like me playing this game. I'm playing by the rules, I'm not necessarily playing by realism. Because Farm Simulator allows me to do things. It's like in Farm Sim 17, you could weed all the fields 3 times and get free fertilizing, three levels of fertilizing for free. But realistically, weeding doesn't add fertilizer states, and you should probably do other forms of fertilization. So I do mix that in. I try and keep it semi-realistic in that effort, where during the fall we'll maybe plant a cover crop, maybe plant some or maybe put down some manure, And then when we plant the seeds, we plant with solid fertilizer. When the crop starts growing, we'll use liquid fertilizer on it. And that's more realistic than what the game allows you to do to get around the requirement for fertilizing. I could just turn fertilizer required off, but it gives me something to do. Otherwise we'd just be planting, harvesting. So there's so much that goes on. You just have to obey the rules, and the rules aren't necessarily ideal, make sense. You play the game as the rules are written, and you do well. So the teachers do well because they're saying, oh, all my students, they're A+ students, they're brilliant. You're telling them the answers. Yeah, but they got all the answers right. No, you got the answers right. Yeah, but it's because only because I guided them. They said, no, you didn't guide them, you gave them the answers. It wasn't teaching that got them the grade, it was you giving them the answers so that you could turn in to your superiors and say, look how good my students were, A+ all the way across the board. And I don't like it. But there aren't any checks and balances on that. And I'm not saying it's all teachers. There are good teachers out there. There are teachers who will sit down with a slow student or a new student and will give them as much as time as allows in order to bring them up to speed. But education's a two-way thing. The child has to be willing to learn, and the teacher has to be willing to teach and capable of teaching. And unfortunately, my schooling, I had some teachers who were completely incapable of teaching. My computer studies teacher was a genius, and he knew his stuff. But he couldn't teach, and the reason I say that is when it came down to kids who didn't understand the subject, he didn't understand why they didn't get it. So he couldn't explain it to them any other way. It was just, it is what it is. And I'm sorry, as a teacher, that's not good enough. You need to explain to the student how and why. And if the student doesn't understand, you can't just throw your arms up and say, well, I don't know what to tell you. And it's something, my mum was a teacher, and she was a good teacher, but there were times she was struggling. We had, while she was still studying to be a teacher, one of our friends at church at the time was failing her math, and she needed to pass math because she wanted to be a scientist. Now, she didn't need a high level of achievement in math, but she did need a certain level of achievement at math, and she was struggling. And the main thing she was struggling with was algebra. And the sort of the 2a equals 6, and she couldn't work out that a equaled 3. And my mum had spent a couple of weeks trying to teach this girl algebra, and it just wasn't working. And my mum came to me one day and she says, I don't know what to tell her. I've told her all the things and she just doesn't get it, and I don't know what I'm missing. I don't know what else I can say to sort of open her eyes to how it works. And I just said, well, why don't you go back to numbers? So she said, well, like what? So I said, well, like 2 times 3 equals 6. So you're asking the question, what's 2 times 3? And what does it equal? And obviously, the girl understood multiplication and division. What's 6 divided by 3? Well, it's 2. Okay, what's 6 divided by 2? Well, it's 3. Okay, now replace it with letters. So 2 times 3 equals A. And she's sort of, oh, okay. And then you go 6 divided by 2 is A. Oh, okay, 6 divided by A is 3. And because she'd seen it done with numbers, and she suddenly understood how to juggle, 6 times 2 equals, 2 times 3 equals 6, and 6 divided by 2 equals 3. I've got 2, 3, and 6 in the formula, in the statement, and it's what's that? What's 51 mean? I don't understand that. Okay, strange picture. That's not something I've come across. Anyway, yeah, and yes, and that's the thing, and it sort of all it takes is for that glimmer of realization, at least for this particular girl, and she was like, oh, I so understand this now. And from that point onwards, she was juggling algebra like a pro. And a couple of days later, my mum came to me and said, well, that worked. So, but a teacher will understand that sort of thing, because my mum wasn't at that time a teacher. She was training to be a teacher, but it was, how do you think, it was sort of, it's how people think. Another example of how people think was, in my youth I used to play Dungeons and Dragons, and we had one guy who made the most incredible dungeons, and they were lethal. And he sort of presented us with this tomb he'd created, and there were a group of, I think we had 16 players when we started. It was, it was a big thing. And we started off, and we'd been playing for a good couple of months, just this one dungeon of his. We got to a point, and he said, I've run this dungeon 3 times so far, and you are the first group to get this far. And we'd lost, probably by that point, 4 of our members. So we were down to 12 left, and he said, you're the first group to get this far. Everybody else died. And this was the final point of where everybody dies. And I think the main thing was, he and I were absolutely on the same wavelength. Every trick, every trap, I figured it out. I was the one that figured 90% of the things out. And it wasn't, I wasn't the thief in the party. I was a fighter magic user. But when it came to involving thinking, and working out, what button do I press? Working out how to get past something, I was the one that typically came up with it. And later on we collaborated. I had a job in the fast food cafe in the student union,